Let me tell you about a story, a theory really, that connects a strange visitor from interstellar space, the planet Mars, and a story from our own ancient past. What if an object called 3I/Atlas isn't just some random comet, but is actually here on a mission that started thousands of years ago? So let's dive into this. The heart of the mystery is an object, 3I/Atlas, and it's heading towards Mars right now. Now, most scientists are calling it an interstellar comet. Sure. But this one theory we're exploring today says its behavior is, well, it's unlike anything we have ever seen. This isn't just a random flyby. This is an arrival. Okay, so to really get what this theory is all about, you first have to understand the main problem with Atlas. To put it simply, this thing is just not playing by the rules. It's breaking the basic laws of how things are supposed to move around in space. And that's the absolute key right here. You see, natural objects, like comets or asteroids, they just get pulled along by gravity. They follow these predictable paths. But the theory claims that if you look at Atlas's path, you can see these tiny course corrections. That's not gravity. That's a sign of powered flight. It's as if it's navigating its way through our solar system, not just tumbling through it. And look, this isn't just some wild idea from the fringes. The source material for this theory actually points to scientists like Dr. Jacqueline McClary. She's noted just how different Atlas is from our other interstellar guests. Remember Oumuamua? That thing was like a cosmic piece of driftwood. Atlas, on the other hand, well, it seems to be acting with intent. And that's the whole point. Its behavior hints at a purpose. So, if it's not a natural object, then what in the world is it? Well, this is where the theory points to some really specific signs that it says are proof of artificial design, of engineering. This really lays out the big differences, doesn't it? A normal comet just follows a random path, and it only starts spitting out gas, what we call outgassing, when it gets close enough for the sun to heat it up. But Atlas, it seems to have a navigated path, and it's carrying what the source calls a precisely engineered payload. Let's take a closer look at that payload because that's where things get really interesting. Get this, an 8-to-1 ratio. 8 parts carbon dioxide to 1 part water ice. According to this theory, that is not a random cosmic coincidence. No way. That's a formula. It's a very specific recipe you would use if your goal was to create a massive, powerful greenhouse effect on a planet. Say a planet like Mars. And then you've got this little fact. Atlas started venting its payload way out at 4.4 astronomical units from the sun. That's deep space. It is way, way too cold out there for ice to just naturally turn into gas. So the theory doesn't even call it outgassing. It calls it activation, like a switch was flipped and a system was deliberately turned on. Okay, now I need you to stick with me because this is where the theory takes a massive leap, connecting what we're seeing in our telescopes today with ancient Mesopotamian history. The question it asks is just wild. Could a story that's 3,600 years old actually hold the key to what's happening right now? You see, our best calculations suggest Atlas has been traveling for about 3,600 years to get here. And what is just absolutely stunning is that this number, 3,600 years, lines up almost perfectly with a recurring cycle that was described in ancient Sumerian texts, a cycle for the return of beings they called the Anunnaki. And this timeline just lays out the incredible connections the theory makes. The Sumerian texts say the Anunnaki came from the direction of Sagittarius, which is the exact same part of the sky that Atlas came from. The texts also claim they left behind a way station on Mars when they departed, and that they promised to return. And now, an object with a payload designed to transform Mars arrives. The coincidences are just piling up. So, who exactly were the Anunnaki? Well, according to the source material, which cites translations of these Sumerian tablets, they were supposedly this super advanced civilization. They came to Earth, they genetically engineered early humans to be a workforce, and then they left, but with a promise to come back when their great work was finished. And that brings us to the whole purpose of this supposed mission, a cosmic engineering project on an unbelievable scale. The theory suggests that this object, Atlas, is here to kick off the final stage of a plan to terraform Mars. So here's how the theory says it would all go down. First, Atlas releases its payload into the Martian atmosphere. That kicks off a massive runaway greenhouse effect, which starts warming the planet up fast. Then, the polar ice caps start to melt, releasing incredible amounts of trapped water and gas. And within just a few months, Mars could actually start showing signs of a real, thickening atmosphere. A dead world brought back to life. The theory even goes back and re-examines things we've already seen. It asks, what if Oumuamua and other strange objects weren't just random visitors passing through? What if they were actually advanced scouts, checking things out, or maybe even delivering some preliminary supplies to get Mars ready for this final, big event? So you have to ask, why now? Of all the times in history, why this moment? Well, according to the theory, the timing is absolutely critical. If some advanced civilization wanted to finish a big project on Mars, they'd have to do it before human technology gets a permanent foothold there, before we get advanced enough to maybe get in the way. And that, of course, leads to the big, staggering question for all of us. I mean, if our solar system is basically somebody else's construction zone, then what is our role in all of this? Where do we fit in? The implications, if this theory were true, are just mind-shattering. Psychologically, we'd have to accept we have never, ever been alone. Economically, all of our plans to go to Mars, they'd become worthless, literally overnight. And existentially, wow, we would have to face the very real possibility that our entire species was engineered for a purpose we never knew about. And here is the ultimate cosmic irony in all of this. Our greatest scientific achievements, all those rovers and satellites we have at Mars, they would become unwitting accomplices. Think about it. We've built the perfect biological and atmospheric monitoring system on another planet, and we'd just be feeding real-time data on the success of an alien terraforming project. This all leads to this really mind-bending idea that the source calls the control paradox. It suggests that the very knowledge that lets us figure this all out, our science, our ability to understand what's happening, could itself be part of the plan. A kind of psychological prep work to make sure we don't freak out when the time comes. So, it all comes down to this one final, really provocative question. In this grand cosmic drama that might be unfolding right on our doorstep, what is humanity's ultimate role? Are we just meant to be witnesses, watching a construction project? Are we the designated workers, just like the ancient texts suggest? Or, if we fail to adapt, are we just biological waste in a system that has moved on without us? Something to think about.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our goal here, as always, is to dig into the sources, pull out what matters, and give you what you need to stay informed. Today, we're looking at something officially known as Comet 3 Atlas, but the sources we've got, they paint a very different picture. Far more than just ice and rock. We're diving into some pretty specialized material today. Claims that Atlas isn't natural at all, that it was, well, built and sent.
That's the core of it, yeah. The source material we're examining is, let's be clear, highly speculative, but it's also incredibly detailed. It frames Atlas as an engineered vessel, and its purpose, terrifying, apparently, spanning millennia. So our mission today is unpacking this central idea that Atlas is, and this is a quote, the final piece in a cosmic engineering project. And the course claims this realization. It supposedly triggered immediate emergency protocols in basically every major space agency worldwide.
Wow, okay, that's a massive claim right there, that NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, they're all scrambling behind the scenes because they know this thing is artificial. So if it's not a comet, what's the evidence? What does the source actually point to as proof of, intentional design?
Well, the first thing you have to look at is how it's moving, its behavior. The source goes into detail about how Atlas's trajectory. It just doesn't quite fit standard Newtonian physics. We're talking subtle things, changes in its vector, its direction, that aren't just gravity.
Right, not like Oumuamua or Tui Borisov. Those just sort of tumbled through, didn't they?
Exactly. Those were basically ballistic, like, interstellar debris just coasting. Atlas, though. This source claims it shows signs of course correction, actual corrections. The term used is powered flight.
Powered flight, so it's driving, not just falling. That alone makes it stand out from everything else up there.
And what's really interesting is where it seems to be coming from, or rather the angle. The analysis brings up astrophysicist Dr. Jacqueline McClary. She's cited as noting Atlas behaves, and I quote, like something with a mission. And if you trace that path backward, it doesn't just point outside the solar system. It points specifically to the thick disk region of our galaxy.
Okay, hang on. Thick disk. For those of us not deep into galactic geography, what's the big deal about the thick disk?
Ah, right. The thick disk is, yeah, well, it's old. It's populated by really ancient stars, stars that formed much earlier in the galaxy's history, typically lower in heavy elements, moving slower. It's basically a very old, established neighborhood, cosmically speaking.
Mhm.
So if this object came from there, it suggests it's been traveling for an incredibly long time, maybe originating from a civilization that predates Earth itself, the level of planning implied.
Yeah.
It suggests, well, vast timescales, temporal engineering, perhaps.
Okay, so the path suggests steering intent, but the real proof of engineering, I guess, would be in what it's made of, its payload. The
Mhm.
source seems really focused on the outgassing.
It is, yeah, very focused. Atlas started releasing gas, outgassing, way out at 4.4 astronomical units from the sun. Now, for context, that's way beyond Mars's orbit. It's really cold out there. Far too cold for water ice to sublimate, to turn directly into gas, like you'd expect from a normal comet. The source doesn't call it sublimation, it calls it activation.
Activation. Okay, activating what? What's it releasing?
This is the core of the engineering claim. It seems to be releasing a very specific chemical mix. The composition of the gas is apparently the smoking gun. Atlas is releasing an 8-to-1 ratio of carbon dioxide to water ice.
8 to 1 CO2 to water. That sounds precise. But why is that ratio the big signal? Why not just a chemically weird comet?
Because, according to this analysis, that specific 8-to-1 ratio is exactly the atmospheric mixture you'd need to kickstart a controlled runaway greenhouse effect on Mars. It's the precise cocktail needed to start melting the Martian polar ice caps, thickening its atmosphere. A natural comet would have a jumble of stuff, random ratios. This payload seems, well, optimized, engineered for a specific planetary job.
Like, it's designed to jumpstart Mars's climate system. Which brings us to the timing. It's not just how it's doing it or what it's carrying, but when. Its closest approach to the sun, October 29th, 2025. That puts it inside Mars's orbit, right? About 1.44 AU.
Exactly. And that position, that timing, is described in the source as the optimal position for deploying atmospheric engineering technology.
Yeah.
The idea is it settles into position, activates this release, and starts the terraforming. But this is where the mechanical precision, the orbital mechanics, connects to something, well, much bigger, much older.
Ah, right. This is where it gets really wild. The connection to ancient history, ancient calendars.
Precisely. The source draws a direct line. That closest approach date, October 29th, 2025. It supposedly aligns perfectly with calculations found in ancient Mesopotamian records describing the return of their sky gods and the cycle they recorded for this return, every 3,600 years.
And modern estimates put Atlas's travel time at roughly 3,600 years. Okay, that alignment, if accurate, is uncanny. It seems too precise for coincidence, tying an engineered object to ancient prophecy.
Yeah, and the source digs deep into Zecharia Sitchin's translations of Sumerian cuneiform tablets here. Now, Sitchin's work is, let's say, controversial in mainstream archaeology, highly debated. But this source uses it as a key foundation. These tablets, according to Sitchin's interpretation used here, describe the Anunnaki, an advanced race arriving from the direction of Sagittarius.
Which, as you mentioned, is roughly where Atlas seems to have originated from. And they came here, according to these interpretations, to mine resources and to genetically engineer early humans as a labor force.
That's the narrative presented. And it wasn't just Earth. The text supposedly described the Anunnaki setting up a base, a way station, on Mars. They allegedly left Earth, promising they'd return when their great work is complete. This fits neatly with the idea that the Mars terraforming isn't new, but maybe the final step in a plan thousands of years old.
So then, Oumuamua and 2I Bursov, they weren't just random interstellar visitors. The source suggests they were scouts, preparing the way. How would they even know that?
The argument hinges on their slightly unusual behavior, too. Subtle deceleration, odd rotations. The source interprets these as signs of low-power monitoring, like they were surveying the system.
Oh.
And it gets more specific. The source points to orbital surveys of Mars from recent decades. These surveys apparently show strange chemical deposits near the poles, deposits that chemically match materials you'd expect from controlled cometary impacts. The suggestion is that Mars has been undergoing gradual modification for a while now, maybe decades, setting the stage for Atlas's main delivery.
Wow. Okay, so it paints this picture of a huge, long-term cosmic construction project, which leads to the big question. If this is real, if this project works, what does it mean for humanity? Are we looking at subordination or something else? Survival?
The source lays out two starkly different possibilities based on who or what is behind Atlas. Scenario A is what they call the galactic construction zone. This assumes it's a purely external, dominant force.
Right, the idea being that if Atlas is artificial, whoever sent it sees entire planets, Earth included, as just raw materials, construction projects.
And if that's true, any human plans for colonizing Mars just became irrelevant overnight. Mars isn't our backup plan anymore. It's the strategic high ground, now potentially occupied by someone vastly more powerful, someone who might not even register human claims to it.
And the psychological blow. Scenario A suggests we might have to face the possibility that humanity itself isn't organic, maybe, but the result of deliberate genetic engineering, created as a workforce for whoever is coming back.
Yeah, that's the heavy implication. And the source even tries to find contemporary evidence, citing unexplained atmospheric events on Earth, sudden weird auroras, magnetic fluctuations as potential tests of environmental tech, maybe controlled from Mars.
But then the source does a complete 180 with Scenario B. This is the one arguing the intelligence isn't alien. This involves quantum archaeology and ancient human cycling.
It does. It's a radical pivot. Scenario B suggests this isn't conquest, it's intervention, preservation, and it hinges on something called the genetic anomaly.
The idea that we're biological hard drives.
Pretty much, yeah. The claim is that deep quantum DNA sequencing of very old human remains found anomalous genetic sequences, about 8% of our genome apparently dating back 200,000 years. These sequences, the source claims, have no clear evolutionary origin but contain complex mathematical patterns that perfectly match the orbital calculations for Atlas. So, in this view, we are biologically tagged, genetically programmed, in a way, to track this object's return.
So the intelligence isn't alien, it's advanced human consciousness from previous cycles of civilization that collapsed.
That's the hypothesis in Scenario B. It posits these massive quantum archaeological computers found deep beneath the Sahara Desert, supposedly running for 200,000 years. Set up by hyper-advanced humans from earlier cycles of collapse and rebirth driven by recurring galactic events, maybe repeating every 200,000 years.
And the Mars Project is their way of saving the current iteration of humanity, us.
The data from these alleged Sahara computers apparently predicts Earth is heading towards irreversible environmental collapse points within the next 50 years. So the Mars terraforming isn't colonization by outsiders, it's creating a lifeboat. A backup habitat for current human consciousness before Earth becomes uninhabitable, like a cosmic Noah's Ark project.
So we're not being conquered, we're being rescued by ourselves, essentially, our own distant, hyper-evolved ancestors. But the source doesn't frame it as just a passive rescue, right? It presents it as a choice.
Yes, a critical decision point for current humanity. Knowing this changes things. Option 1, accept the help to terraform Mars. Ensure survival. That's presented as the 80% probable outcome, but it means continued dependence, staying within this cycle managed by the previous humans. Option 2, reject the help, pursue our own path, maybe our own technological transcendence, independent of the cycle. That's the 20% outcome. High risk of extinction in the near term, but it offers a chance to break the 200,000-year pattern.
That's it. Yeah, a terrifying choice. Guaranteed survival, but continued dependence versus a long shot at true autonomy, but risking everything.
And it forces you to confront the idea that maybe our entire development, our history, has been subtly guided.
Yeah.
Even if we're saved, the illusion of human free will might be the most sophisticated control mechanism of all.
So whether Atlas represents a hostile takeover by returning gods wanting their workforce back, or a desperate rescue mission by time-spanning future past humans, its arrival basically rewrites everything we thought we knew about history, destiny, the whole deal. It forces a choice between two narratives, and honestly, both are pretty unsettling for the idea of human agency.
And the source makes one final, very pointed observation about where we stand right now. It claims the timing of Atlas's arrival is significant. It means human technology has just crossed a crucial threshold. We are apparently just advanced enough now to detect it, analyze it, understand the trajectory, the composition, the historical echoes, maybe even the genetic markers. We can see the whole process unfolding.
There's always a but.
But we are absolutely not advanced enough to do anything about it. We can't intercept it, can't deflect it, can't alter its course or its mission. We're positioned purely as observers, not participants. We've reached the level of awareness to grasp the truth, potentially, but not the level of power to change the outcome.
Which leaves us with a really unsettling final thought, doesn't it? If our fate is unfolding on this kind of cosmic schedule, maybe 3,600 years, maybe 200,000 years, whether it's alien engineers or programmed genetics, does knowing the truth, even a terrifying truth about our powerlessness, actually give us any kind of advantage, any power at all? Or are we just becoming aware of the cage?